The day our father died, Rebecca showed her true colors. I always knew my sister was manipulative, but watching her rifling through Dad's study before his body was even cold made my stomach turn. Looking for something? I asked from the doorway, making her jump. She whirled around, clutching a stack of papers to her chest. "Emma," she said, composing herself. "I'm just organizing Dad's paperwork. Someone has to handle these things." My name is Emma Chen, and at 32, I found myself trapped in a battle I never wanted to fight. Rebecca, my older sister by 3 years, had always been the perfect daughter in our father's eyes. Successful real estate agent, married to a wealthy investor, mother of 2 picture-perfect children. I was the disappointment who chose to become a nurse, working long hours at the local hospital and living in a modest apartment. But Dad and I had grown closer in his final years, especially after Mom passed. While Rebecca was too busy for weekly visits, I made time to have dinner with him, help with his medications, and just talk. He confided things in me that Rebecca knew nothing about. "The will reading is tomorrow," I reminded her. "Whatever you're looking for can wait." She smiled tightly. "Of course, I'm just trying to be proactive." As she brushed past me, I caught a glimpse of triumph in her eyes that made my blood run cold. The next morning at the lawyer's office, Rebecca could barely contain her smugness. Mr. Patterson, Dad's attorney, began reading the will dated 6 months ago. "I, James Chen, being of sound mind, hereby leave my entire estate, including my home and all assets, to my daughter Rebecca Chen Morrison." "What?" I interrupted, my heart pounding. "That can't be right." Rebecca's smile widened. "Oh, Emma, don't make a scene. We all know Dad trusted me to handle the estate properly, but something wasn't adding up. Just 2 months ago, Dad had told me he'd updated his will. He'd been concerned about Rebecca's spending habits and her husband's risky investments. He wanted to ensure both his daughters were provided for equally." "Mr. Patterson," I said carefully, "was there a more recent will?" "Dad mentioned updating it recently." The lawyer shuffled through his papers, frowning. "I don't have anything more recent on file." Rebecca stood up, gathering her designer purse. "Well, that settles it. Emma, I'll need you to move your things out of Dad's house by the end of the week. I'm planning to sell it. I've been staying at Dad's place to care for him during his final months." The thought of being kicked out of my childhood home while still grieving made my chest ache. "You can't just throw me out," I protested. "I've been living there, caring for Dad." "As a caretaker, yes," Rebecca cut in. "But now that service is no longer needed. The house is mine, and I need it empty for staging." I watched her stride out, already on her phone making calls about listing the property. Mr. Patterson gave me a sympathetic look, but said nothing. He was right to stay quiet. He didn't know what I knew. That evening, I sat in Dad's study, remembering our last real conversation just weeks before his death. He'd been unusually serious, insisting I pay attention. "Emma," he'd said, "I need you to know something. In my safety deposit box at First National, there's a letter for you. Box 247. The key is taped under my desk drawer. Promise me you'll get it if anything happens." I reached under the drawer now, my fingers finding the small key exactly where he said it would be. Dad had known Rebecca would try something like this. He prepared for it. The next morning, I drove to First National Bank, my hands shaking slightly as I followed the clerk to the safety deposit room. When I opened box 247, I found exactly what I expected. A sealed envelope with my name on it, and underneath, a document that made my heart leap. Dad's real will, dated just 6 weeks ago. Inside the envelope was a letter in Dad's familiar handwriting. "My dear Emma, if you're reading this, then my fears about your sister have proven true. Rebecca has always been skilled at getting what she wants, but this time she's gone too far. The will she found, the one leaving everything to her, was a decoy. I knew she'd go looking for it. The real will is enclosed here. In it, you'll find that I've left the house to you, along with half of my other assets. You've proven yourself to be responsible and caring, while Rebecca has shown me that money only feeds her worst impulses. I'm trusting you to handle the situation with the grace you've always shown. Rebecca won't take this well, but it's time she learned that manipulation and greed have consequences. Take care of yourself, sweetheart. Love, Dad." I clutched the letter to my chest, tears streaming down my face. Even from beyond the grave, Dad was looking out for me, making sure justice would prevail. But I knew the real battle was just beginning. Rebecca wouldn't give up easily, and she'd already started making moves to take control. I carefully photographed every document, made copies, and called Mr. Patterson's office to schedule an urgent meeting. This wasn't just about the inheritance anymore. It was about honoring Dad's final wishes and standing up to my sister's bullying once and for all. As I drove home, my phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Moving company coming tomorrow at 9 a.m. Have your things packed or they'll be disposed of. This isn't personal, just business. I smiled despite myself. Oh, Rebecca, you have no idea what's coming. This time, your games won't work. The stage was set for a confrontation that would change our family forever. All I had to do was wait for the right moment to reveal the truth. The next morning, I woke to the sound of moving trucks pulling up outside. Right on schedule, Rebecca was making good on her threat. I took my time getting dressed, knowing exactly how this would play out. Emma, Rebecca's voice echoed through the house. The movers are here. Why aren't your things packed? I descended the stairs to find her standing in the foyer, impeccably dressed in a power suit, tapping her designer heels impatiently. Good morning to you two, I said calmly, pouring myself a cup of coffee from the kitchen. The movers hovered awkwardly by the door, waiting for instructions. This isn't a game, Rebecca snapped. I have buyers coming to view the property this afternoon. Your stuff needs to be gone. I took a slow sip of coffee. Actually, I have something you need to see first. I pulled out the envelope from my bag. More stalling tactics? Really, Emma? This is beneath you. I have the will right here. She waved the document she found in Dad's study. The house is mine. Everything is mine. You mean this will? I asked, pointing to her paper. Dated 6 months ago. That's interesting because I have another one here. Would you like to see when it's dated? The color drained from Rebecca's face as I pulled out Dad's real will. She snatched it from my hands, her eyes scanning frantically. This is a fake, she declared, but her voice trembled. You forged this. Mr. Patterson is on his way over right now to authenticate it, I said. Along with the letter Dad left explaining exactly why he wrote that decoy will you found. He knew you'd go searching for it, Becca. He knew you'd try to take everything for yourself. Rebecca's perfectly manicured hands began to shake. You're lying. Dad would never. Never what? Leave half his estate to me? Never see through your manipulation? I stepped closer. He did both. And now you have a choice to make. We can do this the easy way, or we can let the lawyers handle it. Your call. She crumpled the will in her fists. You think you've won. I've already started the probate process with the other will. I have buyers lined up. You can't just. Actually, I can. I interrupted. And I have. Mr. Patterson has already filed the real will with the court. The house stays in my name. As for the rest of the estate, we split it equally, just like Dad wanted. The doorbell rang. Perfect timing. Mr. Patterson stood on the porch, briefcase in hand. I watched Rebecca's facade crack as reality set in. This isn't possible, she whispered. I had everything planned. That was always your problem, I said softly. You were so busy planning how to take everything that you never stopped to think about what Dad actually wanted. The next few hours were a blur of legal discussions and paperwork. Rebecca sat silently as Mr. Patterson explained how the new will superseded her version. The movers left without touching a single box. By afternoon, it was done. The house was officially mine, and the estate would be divided equally between us. As Rebecca gathered her things to leave, she paused at the door. You think you're so clever, don't you? Playing the perfect daughter until the very end. No, Becca. I just loved Dad for who he was, not what he could give me. That's the difference between us. She straightened her shoulders, her mask of superiority sliding back into place. This isn't over, Emma. You have no idea how to manage this kind of property, these kinds of assets. You'll come crawling back begging for help. I smiled, thinking of all the quiet conversations with Dad over the years, the lessons he taught me about finance and property management while Rebecca was too busy to visit. Goodbye, Becca. I'll have my lawyer contact yours about the estate division. The door closed behind her with a final click. I stood in the foyer of my childhood home, my home now, and let out a long breath. The battle was won, but something told me the war wasn't over. Rebecca wouldn't accept defeat easily. That night, as I sorted through Dad's papers, I found something interesting. Documents showing that Rebecca's husband's investment firm was in serious trouble. They'd been living beyond their means for years, counting on her inheritance to bail them out. No wonder she'd been so desperate to claim everything. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You have no idea what you've done. Hope you can sleep at night knowing you've ruined your sister's life." I recognized the number, Rebecca's husband James. So it was starting already. I forwarded the message to my lawyer and blocked the number. Dad's letter had warned me this might happen. "Be careful," he'd written. "Rebecca and James are in deeper trouble than they let on. They'll try anything when they're desperate." I walked through the quiet house, touching the familiar walls, remembering all the family dinners, holiday celebrations, and quiet moments these rooms had witnessed. Rebecca wanted to sell this place to the highest bidder, erasing our history for quick cash. But I had other plans. The next morning, I made 2 phone calls. The first was to my lawyer, asking him to look into James' investment firm. If they were as desperate as Dad suggested, I needed to protect myself. The second call was to the hospital where I worked. "Hi, Sarah," I said to my supervisor. "Remember that pediatric care program we talked about? I think I found the perfect location." Dad had always said this house was too big for one person. Maybe it was time to give it a new purpose, one that would honor his memory and help others. Rebecca might have wanted to destroy our family home, but I was going to transform it into something meaningful. As I hung up the phone, another text came through, this time from Rebecca's personal number. "Board meeting tomorrow at James's firm. Last chance to fix this. Come alone if you want to make a deal." I screenshot the message, adding it to my growing file of evidence. They were planning something, but this time I'd be ready. The quiet nurse they thought they could bully was gone. In her place was a woman who'd learned from the best. Our father. How to play the long game. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, I sat in Dad's old study, surrounded by the memories he'd left behind, and started planning my next move. The real battle was just beginning. The next morning dawned cold and clear as I drove to James' office building. I prepared for this meeting carefully, wearing my sharpest suit and carrying a briefcase full of documents. Not that Rebecca or James needed to know exactly what those documents contained. The security guard directed me to the top floor, where their investment firm occupied a suite of glossy offices. Everything screamed wealth and success. But I noticed small signs of trouble. Empty desks, outdated magazines in the waiting area, a slightly desperate edge to the receptionist's smile. Rebecca was waiting in the conference room, along with James and a man I didn't recognize. "Emma, thank you for coming," James said smoothly, gesturing to a chair. "This is Mr. Wilson, our firm's legal counsel." I sat down, keeping my expression neutral. "I brought my own lawyer," I said, pressing a button on my phone. The speaker crackled to life. "Go ahead, David." "I'm here." My lawyer's voice came through clearly. Recording started at 9:05 a.m. Rebecca's smile faltered slightly. "Is that really necessary?" Given the text messages I've received, yes. I placed my phone on the table. "Now, what's this deal you wanted to discuss?" James cleared his throat, sliding a document across the table. "We're prepared to offer you fair market value for the house, plus an additional 10% premium. You can walk away with a clean break and a very comfortable sum." I glanced at the figures without touching the paper. "And why would I sell to you when I have other plans for the property?" "Because," Rebecca cut in, her voice sharp, "if you don't, we'll contest the will. We'll drag this out in court for years. Every penny you inherit will go to legal fees." "On what grounds?" I asked calmly. "The will is properly dated, witnessed, and notarized. Dad was of sound mind when he wrote it. We have evidence suggesting undue influence," Mr. Wilson spoke up. "Your position as his caregiver, the timing of the changes." I opened my briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. "You mean these changes?" I started laying out documents one by one. Dad's detailed records of every conversation with Rebecca about money. Bank statements showing transfers from his accounts to your investment firm. Emails where you pressured him for loans he refused to give. The color drained from James's face. "Where did you get those?" "Dad kept everything," I said, "including documentation of your firm's irregular trading practices. He was very thorough." Rebecca lunged for the papers, but I was faster, sliding them back into my briefcase. "Copies are already with my lawyer, the SEC, and in a secure location. Did you really think Dad didn't know what you were doing with his investments?" "You're bluffing," James said, but sweat had begun to bead on his forehead. I stood up slowly. I'm not the naive little nurse you can bully anymore. Dad taught me more than you know, and he left me everything I need to protect his legacy. I turned to Rebecca, including proof that you knew about James's illegal trading and helped cover it up. She went pale. Emma, wait. The house isn't for sale, I said firmly. I'm turning it into a pediatric care center, something that will actually help people instead of funding your schemes. You can either accept that and move on, or I can make sure every investor in your firm knows exactly what's been happening to their money. You destroy your own sister, Rebecca whispered. You tried to steal my inheritance, kick me out of my home, and threaten me with legal action, I replied. I'm just showing you the same courtesy you showed me. Mr. Wilson was already gathering his papers, avoiding eye contact. He knew a losing battle when he saw one. Think carefully about your next move, I said, walking to the door. Those documents aren't the only insurance policy Dad left me. The drive home was quiet. I felt no satisfaction, only a deep sadness for what our family had become. But as I pulled into the driveway of our family home, I saw the contractor's truck already parked outside. The plans for the pediatric care center were moving forward. 2 weeks later, Rebecca's husband's firm was under investigation. She never contested the will. The last I heard, they'd sold their mansion and moved to a smaller house in the suburbs. The pediatric care center opened 6 months later. We named it after Dad, the James Chen Children's Wellness Center. The first time I saw sick kids playing in the garden where I grew up, I knew I'd made the right choice. Sometimes at night, I sit in Dad's old study, now my office, and read his letter again. Money only feeds her worst impulses, he'd written about Rebecca. He was right, but he'd also taught me that wealth, properly used, could create something meaningful. I keep his photo on my desk, next to the center's mission statement. He would have loved seeing the house full of life again, full of purpose. Rebecca never understood that his true legacy wasn't about money. It was about making a difference. Last week, I received a letter from Rebecca. I haven't opened it yet. Maybe someday we'll find a way to heal our relationship, but for now, I'm focused on healing others. That's what Dad would have wanted. The house that Rebecca tried to take from me has become something bigger than both of us. Every day, it helps families facing their darkest moments find hope. And in the end, that's worth more than any inheritance.